good evening, and welcome to everyone out there listening on Twitter and YouTube. I'm Gigi Spear alongside Will Grant on Zoom to bring you this holiday treat that is one-on-one nightly to you from 8:30 to 10 o'clock p.m. tonight. Will, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Gigi. Really excited to talk about some COVID issues plaguing our world of sports today, and some other news which we'll shed light upon.
Oh, we'll shed light upon a lot of stuff. We're going to tackle, like you said, COVID issues across a whole bunch of different leagues, MLB managerial changes, college hoops, NFL playoffs, and then finally finish with, I think this is both our favorite, the NBA. Am I right?
Agreed.
Wow. And you were at an NBA game last night, right? How was the Knicks?
I was at the Knicks game at MSG. They played Detroit. It was a good game. They smacked them around. Knicks won pretty easily, but it was cool to see number one pick in the draft out there, Cade Cunningham. So that was a treat. But it was kind of a dominated game by the Knicks, which I was happy about. So can't complain.
Okay. Yeah, you gotta be happy about a Knicks win too. And do you have any holiday plans coming up?
Me, I'll be in my home in the Bronx here at Fordham Rose Hill, celebrating Christmas Eve and Christmas with my roommates, who we all have fell ill to COVID. So we're here, and we're ready to take on the symptoms that come with it.
Okay, hopefully it's no symptoms. I know for me too, I tested positive too, and I'm home in the basement just chilling alone.
Nice.
See how it goes. Hopefully I could give people some presents on Saturday and maybe get some too.
Nice.
But yeah, until then we could jump right in. We're already suffering ourselves too. I mean, hopefully you feel good. I feel good. But yeah, a lot of different sports are affected by COVID. Like you said, it's different in the NBA. And to talk about the NFL a little bit, NFL Tuesday happened for the fourth time since 1948 this week, when the Rams beat the Seahawks 20-10, and Washington beat the Eagles 17-27. And it's a lot of different changes. Also in the NHL, there are no Olympics, and they might even break early, or they might extend their regular season by a week just so players don't have to play a whole bunch of games back to back. But they've had 50 games postponed through the 23rd of December, which will be tomorrow. And they're going to reschedule their games to what would have been the Olympic break from February 6th to the 22nd. Will, how does it feel to hear about a whole bunch of rescheduling, Olympic cancellations, and a lot of changes in the NFL and the NHL?
Well, I'm experiencing the French phenomenon, which we refer to as deja vu. I really am not too happy about it, but honestly, we really don't know how these leagues are going to, go from here. We've had a lot of league commissioners come out and say that we're going to take this head on. We're going to not stop. We're not going to let it, dominate the entire league. But at the same time, you got to face reality, because a lot of these players are getting put into COVID protocol and not being able to play. So these games are essentially the same color jersey and name on the front, but not always the same names on the back that we see on the court from the beginning of the season. So it's going to be very interesting with different sports and how they adapt and how they choose to go forward. But for right now, the NBA is really experiencing a huge hit along with other sports. But what we have Saturday is one of my favorite days of the year for NBA basketball. It's the best games of the year. We got tons of action-packed stars who are going to show off, but unfortunately this year it doesn't seem like that. We already have Luka Doncic that's out. I believe Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, they're questionable to play. They're still in COVID protocol. So these teams, James Harden, excuse me, these teams are not what we've seen throughout the entire season. So it could be a completely different game, and who knows what outcome will come. But one thing that we know is that we're sort of being deprived of our NBA Christmas Day extravaganza of basketball with a star-studded cast. So, Gigi, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that I'm looking back to summer when the schedules were released, and yeah, you're excited about the first game of the season. It's huge to come back, to watch some NBA. But yeah, the real prize is always Christmas Day basketball. I think it is, like you said, one of the best days of the year. And I am thinking that after Christmas for the NBA, a lot will change too. I think Adam Silver is definitely one of those people, one of the commissioners that you were mentioning that is just headstrong, just going all engines firing ahead, trying to do things as normal as possible, getting games in. And I think that the Christmas games are so important to the NBA that they're going to try and get them in. But I think after that, a lot will change. And I could say for me as a fan, first of all, it is kind of a cool thing in a way, if I wanted to look at and see the bright side, is you get to see a lot of people play that you wouldn't necessarily see it on the court with guys like KD. Like for me at the Nets game the other week, you're seeing him and 7 other players playing that you don't really get to see a lot. One kid getting his first start of the season, and then other players like Nick Claxton getting in and actually getting real minutes and proving his worth. And I think that is really cool as a fan to root for the underdog. And if you do have teams you follow, it is nice to see how well rounded and like how much depth that they have. So I think that there could be silver linings in it, even though I think a lot definitely will change for the NBA after Christmas.
Yeah, I admire your positivity. That's a great way to look at it. A lot of these guys who've been working so hard and don't get into the 8-man rotation, the 9-man rotation that we see every night in the NBA, they are given a chance to, step in and show us what they have. I mean, it's basically what happened with Tom Brady when I think Bledsoe was out, and then Kurt Warner also when Trent Green got hurt. So these guys are able to step in. They're going to show us what they got, and it's nice. It's good to see different guys get into the starting roles and see how they play with other superstars. And maybe a few weeks off for these mega superstars can give a path for these other, not so limelight players to show what they're capable of.
Right. And you're in the league, you're going to be good. And it's just a matter of how good the other players are on your team to see how much actual playing time you're going to get. And I know something that's interesting too with the NBA is looking at the G League. There's so many talented players that get called up or even get called back down from the NBA to go back to the G League. And I think that there's just so much talent in the basketball world. And I wonder what kind of teams will see tapping more into their G League players or even looking more into international players that might have just stuck to their home countries or just playing internationally because that's what they can do. I think a lot of different people will get exposed into that limelight. And also something that I do want to bring up too is college athletics, because I think it's been, for me, the deja vu has been from college athletics games getting canceled rather than the pro games. And I know Kelly mentioned this when she was on one-on-one the other week. It's so freaky because this whole year, it's like for us playing softball, we're just looking forward to traveling again. The whole month of February, we usually are on planes traveling. And these whole past couple months of training, it's just like, all right, well, now it's different. We're back to normal. We have all this to look forward to. And we kind of had it in the rear view. It was kind of behind us. And so I think another way a lot is changing is with college athletics and the quickness with games are postponed or canceled now too.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for a college athlete, but one of my good friends growing up, he plays Ohio State lacrosse, Big Ten. So our freshman year, he was getting ready all throughout the year, all these 6 a.m. workouts to train, like lifts all day and stuff like that. And eventually, I think a week or two before the season started, they're told that all their hard work is not going to be able to be shown on the field this year, and they're going to be sent home. So it's an unbelievable like tragedy. You know, it is for a better cause, but at the same time, it's just you feel as a student athlete that you're being done wrong, and it's a feeling that I can't really describe. But I mean, you just did it so well. And the spring sports, especially now, it's getting scary because we've had a very good women's and men's basketball season, and the football season was fine too. But these spring sports, the Omicron really is coming after them, like specifically. So it's going to be interesting how we see both collegiate sports and the professional sports adapt. And you can't really tell if they're going to finally pull the plug on the season or if they're going to do a little break. But in the NHL right now, it's pretty upsetting because a lot of these guys, I think this is the first time, since like the 80s that professional NHL players are going to play in the Olympics, and they're the feeling of representing their country for a lot of them is so strong, and they're so patriotic about it. And to have that snatched from them is just it's an injustice. But honestly, with the NHL season, there could be a lot of different moves right now. We've seen 44 games get postponed in the last week. And so all of the games between the 22nd and the 25th are canceled as well. And that total will come out to 49 at the end. 49 games that these guys aren't allowed to play in. And we also, like you said before, there's going to be a little break that was for the Olympics. And that's about a 20-day stretch. And if they had, if they were able to switch that break, it would be very beneficial for these guys because there's a lot of people that are out right now with COVID who could get over it. And then a lot of the league could get back to play and it won't really, disturb anything. But since there's that 20-day break in the beginning of February, it's going to be interesting because these guys aren't going to be out representing their country. They're going to be home. They are going to have a rest, but they also have a rest right now. So, maybe you can schedule that break for now, but also there's going to be a lot of scheduling conflicts with arenas, and it just doesn't seem really realistic at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. I think the NHL could listen to you a little bit because in a way you think about it, if the break happens now too, you still have 2-3 couple weeks to get back into it and then play again in February. If they did already want to just pull the plug, which I don't think they did 100% yet. I think that there's still an option that they might play in the Olympics, but the NHL and the NHL Players Association came together and they're pretty much leaning towards pulling this plug and not participating in the Olympics at all, just so that they could get the league games in. I think that you're right in the fact that right now it would just make sense to stop things because there's so much unknown, and I think a lot more research and also resources could come about in the next couple of weeks that would change things very drastically for a lot of leagues, and the NHL could be the model for that. And something that I would wonder about hockey is what we've been seeing, to go back to basketball just for a second, is seeing maybe not 7 necessarily completely new players playing on the court, but you see players, and I wonder how this is going to play out in college basketball specifically, players who might be juniors or seniors now, upperclassmen, who might have not even played in all their time in college. And so they've gone all this time without actually playing a game, maybe playing scrimmages now and then, who might have to start games now too. And so I think that would be very different, just having 11 men on the ice for the NHL. But yeah, I wonder what it's actually affecting, like the day-to-day player relationships on the ice for all these cancellations or postponing games, and doing that, fully postponing games instead of keeping a couple players out on the COVID list like the NBA does. And yeah, and I know I mentioned it before too, but we also have the NFL playing on Tuesdays now. And I asked my dad, who's a big football fan, what he thought of that. And he was like, I'd have football any day of the week. So I don't think fans are that upset. He was like,
No
I
such
could
thing
use
as
a
too
little
much
better
football.
warning though. What was that?
No such thing as too much football.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. And I think maybe we could see more adapting like that. But yeah, the question now is, what do we do? Because this obviously isn't going away. There was so much optimism and hope coming into these past couple months, I think, just as a fan of sports, that I don't think is going to die down. But I think just a lot of fans have really gotten used to being able to switch on the TV and see whatever team they want play. So yeah, I think there's a whole new reality right now out there where this might go on for more years than we expected.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the NFL compared to the NHL and the NBA is the NFL has very like unique positions. So if you have a quarterback that's going to be out for that game, that's going to adjust the line so much, and it's really going to weigh on whether the team's going to win or not. Like, but I mean, NBA, you can have a superstar that's out. It'll be tough. You might not have a center, and you might not have your starting power forward. But the NFL, in a way, these unique positions are very tough because you have players like we had Lamar Jackson the other day who wasn't able to play, and I mean they still played well. They still played well, but it's a huge blow. It's a huge blow when you have somebody who, even like Derrick Henry earlier in the year when he was out because of injury, it really just takes a lot of momentum out of a team. It really just depletes them, and it causes them to really rethink their entire scheme, the way that they're going to enter games. And I think a question that NFL fans are wondering right now is, what do we do about our fantasy league? Are we still are we still competing for it? I don't have players that are going to be playing here this week, so I mean, you have Patrick Mahomes, but I mean, let's say he's out on Sunday. That's an entire quarterback that maybe you're going to have to throw in Taylor Heineke for him instead and lose a few points. So I've had a lot of people in my league saying, "What are we thinking? What do you suggest we do?" But honestly, at this point, I say go cancel the wager for the league, because you can't really do too much when you don't have your starters, and it's just COVID, and there is a lot of inconveniences with injuries throughout the year that have plagued the league. But I mean, the ratings and the attendance are also going to go down, but also we do have people who are quarantined sports fans sitting at home on their couch and are able to watch football more. So it's sort of a give and take when you go down to the ratings and attendance aspect.
So
That
you have Mahomes on your fantasy team?
Let's not talk about that, Gigi.
Okay, all right. I can feel the pain
I
in
had
your voice when
Derrick
you say
Henry
that.
too. So
Oh God.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's interesting too. You still had fans, like diehard Eagles fans, tailgating on Tuesday. So it's just funny, like in a way, the games are getting rescheduled for COVID concerns, but then you still have fans showing up, not wanting their hard-earned money to go to waste for a rescheduled
yeah,
game and still going on a Tuesday night and watching their favorite team play. But then at the same time, then you still have more people in large arenas together. I think that I think that we should remain a little bit hopeful because of the kind of relaxed texting requirements in a way. And I know like that could kind of be counterproductive in the long run, but I think you could have so many players who might have no symptoms anywhere, like across any league, that are still playing throughout, and maybe just randomly one day they get a test and they find out they're positive. And of course, yeah, that's going to keep spreading things, so it's not the best, but um there's not like the bubble requirements of getting tested every so often and then not being able to leave and not see family. There's still like a lot of freedom to be a player, and then also to be a fan too and still attend games. So what do you think? Well, do you think we're going to see more leagues postponing games or pausing, going on pause for throughout the whole league? Or are teams going to just keep going day to day? And if players are asymptomatic, they're asymptomatic and you don't know they're positive or negative. What do you think? Are testing requirements going to shoot up or keeping a little bit relaxed?
loaded question. I don't have all the answers for you, but I mean, there's sports like NHL that and the NBA that could go on a 20-day pause, and they can get players to get back into it and maybe expose them and get them over it so that they're well adjusted and immunized. But there's sports like the NFL that we're going to the last 3 weeks, and some teams' entire season relies on the next 2 or 3 games. So it's going to be tough to put an end to that. And what you brought up before with the asymptomatic players and the fact that they're not necessarily sick, but they can spread the disease. That's an interesting aspect of it too, because you have players who are on the field together and they're not necessarily sick or anything, but it's spreading, and it's going to spread to maybe one of the players' parents, one of the players' kids, one of the players' loved ones who might have a pre-existing condition. So it's hard. And also, like, once you think about that these players have families that they're going home to, you go, bubble time. But no, I don't think that you can pull off the bubble like the NBA did in Disney that time. That was such a close, like, tight, monitored system that worked very well. But it also restricted a lot of those guys from seeing their loved ones, from seeing their children being born, from seeing their family members being married, things like that. The special things in life that you're going to be deprived of if you're just on the journey to just play your next football game. So you got to really put into account these people are not just athletes, they're human beings. And the fact that you want to see them run on the field Sunday it's more of a want than a need, because these guys, they need to be able to do their own things as well. They're not just oiled machines to go out there and hit each other every Sunday. So, Gigi, I'm sorry, that really didn't answer your question at all, but it's it's
But
just my take on it. What?
Yeah, it was beautiful, and that's what matters. It is so true. What a time to think like that too, with all the holidays coming up. Yeah, I always think it's crazy too that games are played on holidays. Like, we think of as non-professional athletes, Christmas Day for me in particular is a day for family. Maybe not this year, maybe family far away, like through a window or something, but still family. And I think it's crazy that we all look forward to these games nonetheless, where players are far away from their family for most of the day. And then just out there making money. Yeah, I think that was a beautiful point. I do think it answered the question though, in that we don't know. I think that's going to be the main conclusion. There's no way for
it's really
us,
up in the air.
and every league is going to handle it differently. Like you said, NBA could be a little bit stricter just because of the nature of the sport and how they could get teams close together. And there's a lot of games left and a lot of leeway, but that's going to be very different for the NFL. And we'll talk more about the NFL and NBA later too. I would also wonder too, specifically about COVID concerns right now in the professional world, is are we going to see any player like out for a really long time because of, sorry, my dog just came in.
Special guest.
So are we going to see players out for a really long time because of this? And there's going to be other injuries and stuff, but I think that would be a main concern. And if it ever gets to that point, then there would be a really, really big problem. But in a way, it's nice to be a professional athlete and have 2 weeks off. Everybody probably has a practice facility in their home. So 2 weeks off is not just 2 weeks off. 2 weeks off is like time to rest, especially now with the NBA. It's probably a great time for James Harden, KD specifically, to rest their bodies. Harden would be out for 2 weeks by the time Christmas Day game comes, and then KD out for 9 days. So I think for players like that, it's huge. So there could be like huge benefits in a way to being on the COVID reserve list.
Yeah, I think the benefits, like we described before, there's a lot of players that don't really get to see the floor and they're getting their opportunity, and there's players that see too much of the floor that need a little break. And it's hard as a fan to swallow that and accept that these people are really drained, or they need that time to get on the court, even though you don't want to see this backup scrub scab guy come out and play when you paid to see James Harden on the floor. But at the same time, this is sports. These are people, like I said before. And there's just like this issue, there's a lot of give and take. But I think that the NFL is something that should be examined uniquely, apart from the NBA and the NHL. Just for the sole fact, like I stated before, there's these positions where your starting quarterback is out and you're kind of screwed. Like you really aren't reliant on your second string. You aren't counting on him to, get the job done, but you gotta. And it's the last few games of the season. What are you gonna do when you're on the fringe of making the playoffs? You're in the hunt, and your starting quarterback gets out, or your starting running back who's carried you guys the entire season. It's devastating. It's heartbreaking. So it's difficult to figure out what the NFL will do. They're already so deep into the season. Like a lot of coaches and a lot of the owners are, they're saying like it seems like it's never going away. I mean, it's just something that we have to deal with every, 6 months or so. And then there's others that, they feel like they're fighting a ghost. They don't know where to hit it. They don't know where to go in this direction because there's so many moving parts and you don't know if it's going to come back. You don't know if it's going to stay. You don't know if the booster or the immunity shot are going to actually take care of this. So a lot of these protocols right now that they're going into with the COVID-19 list are, they're experimental. So at this point, the NFL, I really don't see a scenario where they stop play. They need to keep going. The NHL and the NBA, on the other hand, do have the will to, it's prior to the halfway through the season. So they can put a stop to it. But I'm not sure if these NHL and NBA execs are going to, want that money to be wasted. Like the MSG last night was bumping. They played the Pistons, one of the worst teams in the league. And there was still fans out there cheering, going crazy. It was almost a packed house. Like that's MSG though. But it's tough because everybody has a job. These employees at MSG have a job. These security guards. So it's hard to really, make a strong decision. But it seems like Adam Silver's pretty persistent on staying open, which I respect the taking this head on. So.
Great points. Great points. You're right. We got Christmas Day games to look forward to, a lot of moving parts in that, and a Super Bowl to look forward to. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But before we talk more about the NFL, we're going to talk about in our next segment some changes in the MLB. So please stay with us. We'll be back here on Twitter and YouTube. I'm Gigi Spear, and alongside Will Grant, we've got you for the rest of the night on One-on-One Nightly. Welcome back to One-on-One Nightly. I'm Gigi Spear here with Will Grant. During that break, my dog ate some chocolate. So please, if you're listening, tweet at us. Is he going to be okay? Please tell me yes. It was a good amount of chocolate. Welcome back here, though. Will and I are matching tonight in cohesion and union, and we have some MLB news to talk about. So one old manager coming in and one pretty young manager coming in. First, let's talk about Buck Showalter coming into the New York Mets organization. Instead of retiring at 65, he is now their newest manager. Will, any first impressions on this move? Are you surprised at all? He is 24th on the all-time wins list for managers. So this is definitely a huge addition for the Mets, who finished a disappointing 77-85 last year after leading the NL East in early August. So what are your first impressions, Will?
He seems to be coming in with a full head of steam. He said everything has got to be about the Mets, which you like that out of a manager. You really like somebody who's staying true to them, and he's coming into a really interesting position here. He's got 20 years of experience in the majors as a manager. He's got 4 with the Yanks, 3 with the D-backs, 4 with the Rangers, and his last stint, he did 9 with the Orioles. So he has an unbelievable 1-2 punch this year with arguably the best, rotation in the league. He's got Scherzer, who they just acquired, and they got, as we know, DeGrom. Like it's very hard to come into there and think you're going to do poorly. But as we saw last year with the Mets, they didn't hit as well when they had DeGrom on the mound. They felt they were a little reliant on him at the plate when he was behind the mound. So, I don't know too much about baseball scheme, but it seems like Buck Showalter has been in these positions. I know that he doesn't have any titles, but this 77-85 team, they were 11 and a half games back in their division. They really took a losing route at the end of the season. Many thought that they were for sure going to make the playoffs, going to go far, but they kind of just lost it. And I think that whole message that he came in with, like, everything has to be about the Mets. This is all about the Mets. This isn't about Scherzer. This isn't about DeGrom. This is about the Mets. This is everybody functioning and doing their job. As Bill Belichick says so much, you got to do your job. So if they're able to focus, and it seems like Showalter is very keen on making them focus, I think that they'll be successful. But you can't really tell right now. It's a little early, but they did get Starling Marte, the center fielder, and Eduardo Escobar, third base. So they have a lot of new things to work out along with their new manager, but I'm not sure how well that he's going to do, like, in this situation. The experience is great, but I mean, he's had 2 of his teams go over 500 in that total span. And the last stint with the Orioles, as we know, the Orioles haven't been too great in the past few years. So it's really how he's going to come back from that, and how the Mets are going to come back from a seemingly disappointing season.
Disappointing. And I wonder too if that kind of early on success and then eventual no playoff run is going to be the same fate of your Knicks too, just to keep in mind. I hate to say it, but it did come up the other day. And we got to wonder about the Knicks. But anyway, yeah, back to the Mets. I think that this is huge. And for Mets fans to lose momentum later on in the season after doing so well, yeah, of course, like you mentioned, you still have DeGrom if you're a Mets fan. So there's definitely a lot to look forward to. But with these new acquisitions, it's just huge. And Max Scherzer basically signing because of this managerial change too, or at least maybe you have Buck coming in because Scherzer signed. So I think there's a lot of moving parts here, and those two definitely are meant to be set up together for success. And there are a lot of expectations, I think, for the Mets for next year because of the success that they had, at least for a short period of time last season, despite a disappointing ending. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think it's interesting too that he has experience in New York. I think that's going to be huge. He had a stint with the Yankees starting back in 92. And he was young then. He was only 36 years old. Now, like I mentioned, he's 65, retirement age, but he's still going. And I think that's going to be a crucial piece, is that actual experience in New York. And I think that he's hungry. The Mets are hungry, and they haven't actually made the playoffs for 5 years now, since 2016. So there's going to be a lot of turning around that has to happen. And yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's really no way to predict what's going to happen, but there's a lot of good changes, including this new addition of Showalter. So hopefully the Mets do turn around a little bit. And we also do have to discuss a bit the Oakland A's new manager. So Mark Kotze has signed a deal through 2024, and he's a little bit of a different script than Buck because he's 46 years old. So he's the sixth youngest in the MLB, the sixth youngest manager. And I had to look into this because now I was just hung up on the age of managers throughout the MLB. So the average age at the end of the 2020 season was 53 years old. And I guess that makes sense. If you look at these managers we're talking about, it's kind of in between them. And the oldest is Joe Madden, 67 right now. And something that's really interesting about Katse that I would say is he came into his interview, although he had experience with the A's, he came in 2016, was a bench coach, and then he was a quality control coach from 2018.
Whatever that means.
2020. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, whatever that means, I want that job. Quality control. Okay. It's like that Office episode, quality control messes up fun, like printing the papers out. Whatever. Anyway, and then he was the third base coach last year. But he came into the interview despite having all this experience within the organization as if he didn't know the people that were interviewing him. And they really praised him for that, saying that takes a lot of humility and also adaptability to know that you have this experience and you're basically groomed for this role of manager, but to still come in and respect the role and respect the other applicants or people that they're interviewing, I think is huge. And that says a lot, that adaptability and also just kind of humility in the organization.
Yeah, I agree. He also played for the Oakland A's for a little bit in 04 to 07. In 04, actually finished 14th in AL MVP voting, which, you know, he's got some brownie points over there. And yeah, like you said, he's been around the league, he's been around the organization, and he's kind of came from the ground up. And since he's joined Oakland, since 2016, they were a 426 average, and they just kept going up. 463, 600, 600, 600, 531 this past year. But this team is legitimate, and it seems like he's done his part in letting them get set up for success. So if he's able to take this starting role, I think that the fans of the Oakland A's should be very confident. And he's one that has been around them for a while, like I said before, and he knows their strengths and weaknesses. And there's no other person right now who could really replace Bob Melvin, who went off to the Padres. But the A's are very confident in Kotze because he's well groomed. He's been there for a while. So that experience, you know, we'll see how it translates this year. But honestly, I think this was a good move, getting a young guy in there, getting them pumped up, getting somebody who's been around that atmosphere, someone who's played there. It's going to be something that should be interesting in the process to watch and utilize over the next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there really was no other option. You are having to replace the winningest coach or winningest manager in A's history, and Bob Melvin, like you mentioned, who has since left. That this is going to be the best choice for them. They finished 86 and 76 last year. Not a bad record, really. And I think that playing experience that you mentioned, not only for the A's, but then also going back to college, having experience winning a college World Series with Cal State Fullerton. Yeah, I think that's going to be huge in the same way where he can have that transparency that comes with being a player and being a good and respectable player at that, that is going to keep kind of that Melvin legacy and success going. Certainly big shoes to come into, but I think as long as he could, you know, use all his experience in the A's organization, he knows the front office, he knows the players, and not only be kind of a figurehead for the team, but also just be a person that they could count on and know that they could trust, who will be transparent in whatever news that they have to relay to the team. Yeah, I think that this is going to be, these are both two huge manager additions going across the MLB. And unfortunately, we do have to pivot a little bit and talk about current sport that's playing right now, and that's college hoops. Like we mentioned, it might be a little on and off because of COVID, games getting postponed here and there. But we do have a lot to talk about in a way. And we'll talk briefly a little bit about both women's college hoops and men's college hoops. We got some really good teams ranked high early on, and then also some teams that you might really not expect to have some success later on in March Madness. But first off, let's talk about women's college hoops. So South Carolina maintaining their number one spot, beating Stanford the other night, 65-61. Such a close game, and coming back from their biggest deficit of the year, down 18 points at one time. And there was a lot of, I guess I could say, bad blood coming into this game, which I think just makes the story that much sweeter. It's a mid-season game, which, might not necessarily get that much hype, but it's all coming down to March Madness pretty much for both women's and men's hoops. But the Gamecocks had lost to Stanford last year in the Final Four, and now have been maintaining that number one spot. And definitely this was a game to win, and a game people might have not thought that they would win because they were down by 18 at the first half. Will, any impressions on this game? There was over 13,000 fans at the arena in South Carolina. And I think that's huge for a Tuesday night, especially now what we're talking about, a lot of things up in the air for fans, and what games can you go to, what can you not, who's going to play at whatever game. What are you thinking about this matchup?
I mean, it's just very impressive that they were able to bounce back after being down so much. I saw Boston and Henderson both combined for 35, and Boston grabbed 11 boards, and she seemed to be sort of the deciding factor. Also, the issue of turnovers, Stanford had 20, and South Carolina, I believe, had 7. So that's always something to look at in basketball. That's somebody who really has like a knowledge for basketball. They don't look at necessarily a lot of other stats besides turnovers because they're so crucial. Those are just points that are just given up. Like they're just straight up just handing the ball to the other team and not being able to put a shot up. Even putting a shot up is good. Also, South Carolina had 13 steals and Stanford had 4. So just those possessions that are lost and are, turned over, they add up, and you get to see that. And with South Carolina going on that run, it's pretty reliant on those turnovers and steals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a huge stat. I would completely agree with you that it's such an overlooked thing too.
Yeah.
And I would say, especially for guards too, who you're trusting to handle the ball coming up the court and run plays, you got to look at how many turnovers they're averaging per game, and kind of what their efficiency rate could be in that way. I think it's interesting to how much this win showcases the greatness of Dawn Staley as a coach too. This was the first time that a team since 2011 and 2012, when Baylor had done this, had won multiple matches between number 1 and number 2 teams. So like they won against UConn a couple weeks back in November, the South Carolina did. And now with this win against Stanford, I think that shows a lot about good coaching and good playing. Like you mentioned, Henderson and Boston. I think that this definitely makes you even more excited for March Madness and all effects, not even just for South Carolina, but for basketball in general. Yeah, I think that's huge. And yeah, something too, this keeps coming up. The Gamecocks weren't even in full health. They were still missing key players like Grissett, who was out because of the health and safety protocols. So you know what that is. So I think that this was just an exciting game to watch. It's definitely cool to see a mid-season game propel things forward. But let's turn to men's college hoops now. First, I just want to keep it broad. Is there any team that's standing out to you right now that you might put down as a winner of your bracket?
Look, it sounds cliche at the moment, but I think the Duke Blue Devils right now are looking really good. Right now, they're playing Virginia Tech. I mean, Virginia Tech's not a strong team, but they're holding their own. But honestly, there's a lot of impressive wins over the past few weeks and months. They beat Kentucky. That was a huge one to start off the season when they were number 10. Obviously, that win over Gonzaga was huge. What a great game. What a well-fought game. I just think that, if they can keep this up, I know they lost to OSU by 5. That's a good team as well. But they have a lot of, not too good teams in the ACC at the moment. There's Clemson, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami, and they're all really not too good. So I think the season is up for grabs for the Blue Devils. They're going to take the ACC. It just depends if they can get to the dance and maintain this run and, just elaborate on it and just keep going. And there's nothing stopping them right now. Banchero is a beast. He's a stud right now. He's probably going to be the number 1 or 2 pick in the draft, depending on how Holmgren, if he can, put on a few pounds to his stick body. But I think that Duke right now, I think they have it in the bag. It's going to be interesting to see how they play up against UNC. UNC's not as good as they have been in the past few years, but that rivalry is always something that is apparent. It's the biggest rivalry in sports after the Yankees and Red Sox, in my opinion. So if they can really just win out, they have a lot of tough teams, but these teams aren't doing too well this season, like I said before. Is there anybody that you think could just take down Duke easily or could put up a fight?
Well, I do have to say I'm disappointed in that response, but if we're doing predictions later on for NBA, you'll probably be disappointed in my prediction, so It's okay. We'll take that. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at Baylor. I know, again, it's pretty predictable, and there's a lot of names that keep coming up. Obviously, the excitement of March Madness is upsets too. So there's literally gonna be teams right now we're not even considering that could make it to the Final Four or to the Sweet 16, probably more likely. But yeah, I guess I'll go Baylor. I do think that, I mean, it could say a lot how Duke performs tonight against Virginia Tech. I don't mean it's probably not that huge of a game. Yeah, it's an ACC matchup, but Duke N1, Virginia Tech 8-4. I think we know how it's gonna go. But yeah, Baylor being undefeated right now, I think that's huge. I do think that we would just have to watch out for some young team that you really might not expect. Who knows? Maybe it's Fordham. We can see, we can hope, we can pray.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe no A10 team, if anything, would be Davidson. I know we were mentioning even before the show. Beating Alabama, I think, is huge. And for me, I think that's what it's all about, is upsets like that. It's just really exciting to watch. And yeah, I mean, I would have to say that you have to always consider Duke. Like, you can never rule them out, no matter even who's on the roster. It's just them. Duke being Duke, it's just a team like a juggernaut that you can't really stop usually. But yeah, Baylor, huge win the other night. Yeah, against Alcorn State. Not the biggest of a game, but to get a win 94-57 always feels good, especially at home and have the crowd jumping. So yeah, I think looking forward to the 1 and 2 spots. We mentioned for women's college hoops in South Carolina and Stanford, and then men's college hoops, Baylor and Duke. Can't overlook them. And I think right now it's just pretty easy to just chalk it up to 1 and 2 right now to see how the March Madness will finish out. Is there any other teams that you want to mention that might be flying under the radar before we head into a break?
Look, it's always hard to count out. Well, not always, but this season it's hard to completely count out UCLA. Like, they had a very impressive win against Villanova. They did lose to Gonzaga. That was pretty tough loss to Gonzaga, but they have a great schedule coming up ahead of them. If they could take down these teams, they can really prove that they are that actual number 5 team in the nation. I mean, you got Juzang putting up 16.5 points a game, Jaquez putting up 15 himself, Tiger Campbell, always great, 12 points, 5 assists a game. So they have a ton of these different players who can, put their own little pizzazz in there and contribute well. I mean, this team, they went to the Final Four last year, and what were they, an 8 seed? Something like that. But like you said earlier, it's fun to see those teams like the Alabamas to come in and win, because last year we were deprived of that. We had Gonzaga versus Baylor in the final. I mean, it was a very satisfying game, but watching the 1 and the 2 overall team in the tournament make it to the finals is in a way, it's disappointing, but also at the same time, it was a really, really fun game.
Okay. And then I just want, you're so passionate about this. I have to pick your brain one more time. Who do you think is the most exciting team to watch?
I'd have to go with UCLA. I think that they have so many different guys that'll just do their role. And Tiger Campbell's so fun to watch run around and, create and play make. And Ju Zhang's such an excellent scorer. It's fun to watch him play. I really appreciate his game. He's got a great jumper. He's automatic, and he's just very fluid with how he moves and how he takes the ball down the court.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh my God. Well, I think UCLA definitely is fun to watch. Like you said, I mean, they kind of, in a way, is like a Warriors type team, just like fun swinging the ball around. And you could tell that they're enjoying their time. For me, I don't think any team really stands out that much because I just think it's that different of a season. I think a lot of teams just seem like they're having just so much fun, and maybe it's just in comparison to pro sports where college sports always just have that different edge. But I think that the fact that fans are allowed again to makes every game exciting and makes teams really fun to watch. I'll stick with the home loyalty. I think that Fordham women's basketball is very fun to watch. I think them getting huge wins this season against really good teams also is good for the program. They have a lot of crucial players out now because of health and safety protocols, but I think it could be exciting to see how the rest of the roster turns on the Jets and how Coach Gately continues to lead them. Very all right, it seems like I'm kissing up to her right now kind of answer, but I do mean it. I think that they're fun to watch. Maybe it's just because I'm in person watching. So yeah, I would say that. And yeah, basketball is definitely so fun. We do have to take a break. And when we come back, we will have one more segment before we return to basketball where we'll talk about the NBA. But first, we're going to talk about the NFL playoff picture. I want to get some predictions from you, Will, and I want to really, really early on talk about the Super Bowl. So stick with us. I'm Gigi Spear alongside Will Grant, and we have you for another 45-ish minutes here on Twitter and YouTube.
never anything. There's no such thing as too much football. So
Mhm.
I appreciate the fact it was on a Tuesday, which was nice. It was a little treat. What do you think about it?
Yeah, no, oh my God, I think it's so different. I wonder how that kind of helped these teams. Yeah, no, like 20 plus players out for Washington and for the Rams. So yeah, they had to do what they had to do. I mean, same thing with me. I was not really watching it. It's kind of more just transitioning, coming back home. So it wasn't for me, but I do want to ask you too a little bit more about the future. And I think it could be cool if we both lay out a couple predictions who we see in the Super Bowl or who we want to see in the Super Bowl. I think those are two different things. But yeah, I want to fast forward ahead right now, get ahead of ourselves and kind of give ourselves a little Christmas present right now. And maybe some pride later on when we look back and we knew we were right. So I want to know from you, Will, the two teams you think are going to be in the Super Bowl and why. I could say mine first, or you could go first if you'd like. It's up to you.
You can go first. Go ahead. Let's
Okay,
hear.
I'll go first. I'll disagree with our producer Alex Walls here. I am gonna say it's gonna be a Packers and get ready for this Colts Super Bowl. A little bit crazy, I know.
All right.
Um, take you by surprise, but I just think that these two teams would end up perfectly in the Super Bowl. And I think it's obvious why I'm saying the Packers. The first NFC North just clinched that and just beat the Ravens 31-30. I think it's huge for Aaron Rodgers. I think that the storyline of him coming to Green Bay and then sticking through the season and breaking records right now. He just tied Brett Favre's TDs with 442 on Sunday. I think that storyline is just really cool. And I think having a great player like that, not to overlook the greatness of Tom Brady, but I just think it could be nice to switch things up a little bit. Yeah, I would say Packers and for that way. And then Colts, I'm going to say, yeah, Carson Wentz, not the best performance the other day, but you do have Jonathan Taylor going for 170 and a 67-yard touchdown at the end to win it all. So I think those two reasons for the offense for the Colts, but also great defense for that team. And I think that obviously is what sets teams apart later on. Yeah, those would be my predictions. A little bit bold, I know, with the Colts, but that's what I got to say. How about you, Will?
I like the Colt. Like I like that suggestion. It's very, like realistic that they can go far. I mean, they're second in the AFC South and they're only getting better. They got the Cardinals next week, which might be tough, but
Mhm.
that doesn't matter because they'll be in the playoffs most likely. But in my opinion, I think that the Chiefs are definitely going to make it to the Super Bowl. I think that they're heating up. They're getting things back on track. They fooled people a little bit at the beginning of the season, falling off, and people kind of just they're like, oh, maybe the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are most definitely still the Chiefs. Uh, on the NFC side, I believe that it's very wide open. You have a lot of teams that are really good. I think you got three teams that are 10-4, or five teams that are 10-4, one that's 11-3. So I'm gonna have to go with the Rams. I really think that people like the Chiefs were counting out the Rams once they got those two superstars in Beckham and Von Miller. A lot of people thought, oh, I mean, yeah, you can't just throw two guys that are really good on the team in the middle of the season and think that they're gonna do something and spark something up. But they've had their time. They've worked within the system. They've figured it out, and I think that they're gonna crush the Vikings this weekend. And they only have good things ahead of them. Don't forget about Cooper Kupp as well. Like him and Stafford having that breakfast every morning, it goes a long way. They have a lot of chemistry on and off the field, which I find very very interesting and very a different approach at a player chemistry to have breakfast with each other off the field. So just talking ball with that player who's going to make you better and vice versa, it's going to work out in the long run. So Right now, 10-4 Rams, second in NFC West. I like them in the Super Bowl. I think they have a lot of potential. I think the Cardinals are sort of illegitimate. I'm not sure how much that 7-0 start was credited to, easy wins, or I don't know what it was. And in the other side, in the AFC, I just don't think the Patriots are going to be able to pull it off. I mean, you got a great team. They're 9-5, first in the AFC East, soon to be second to the Bills, who are going to beat them. But nonetheless, I think that the Chiefs and the Rams are going to make for a great Super Bowl with some cool, flashy uniforms and colors.
Ooh, I like the visualization too. That's
Yeah,
it's real. Yes. Okay, I could picture it. So you think the Cardinals, you could just rule them out already right now?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, the Rams beating them earlier in December too. I think like you said, that kind of could crush that earlier on run too that might have misled people. Um and I want to know too who you think could be other possible contenders and why. Who else are you seeing stand out?
I like the Chargers a lot. I think that they are very underestimated. They're always counted out. They're always that little brother to in the AFC West. The AFC West is filled with a lot of good competition this year. The Raiders kind of fell off. The Broncos started off well, and they kind of fell off the track as well. But you got the Chiefs and the Chargers in the same division, and what are they, 2 games behind them? I think that the Chargers can really have a shot at this if everyone can stay healthy. I mean, it's wide open right now. I really can't make any crazy predictions, but I I like the Chargers, and they got some cool colors as well.
I think that's the way we need to now
Yeah,
dissect teams. You got to put it okay. Yeah, talk QB, talk running back, defense, whatever. But then you got to talk about the colors, what they look like on the field. Yeah, look good, play good. Wow. Okay. All right. So you got Chargers, Rams, Chiefs in there. And you see.
Packers obviously too.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Last
Um,
dance.
wow. Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. I think that
Statement
is
season.
like just enough storyline to propel them forward. And I think that there's just something you just can't mistake having a great QB leading the team, especially a vet like Aaron Rodgers. I think it's going to be interesting to see too him passing Favre's record. Is that going to propel him anymore? Like, is there going to be any certain type of adaptability later on that would he have to change? And maybe just to go back to the Colts for a second too, I think that having such a kind of a killer running back, Taylor obviously changes things for the QB, and maybe it takes a little pressure off them. Obviously, a lot of action comes out of play action for Wentz, having Taylor right there. So yeah, I think just that move there too is one of the reasons why I'm gonna go with Colts. And yeah, I mean, we kind of touched upon it all. Is there anything else you'd want to mention? Like 3 games left pretty much for every team. Um, which one are you going to be watching on Christmas Day? That's my question.
Christmas Day.
So,
Um, I I think both of them are very good games. I believe it's the Packers Browns, right? And
yeah,
then
Browns
the Cardinals
and Colts.
Colts.
Mhm.
Colts. Yeah, so I mean, both of those games are really going to be fun to watch. If I were to take anybody, I'd probably take the Colts. I think they're going to shock the Cardinals because, like I said before, I don't think they're as legitimate as people think they are. And in terms of the Packers game, I think the lines will be close, but I think the Packers are gonna stomp on them. I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
But
boom. Well, and
yeah,
this segment in agreement then. All
okay.
right, we're on the same page right there. Let's transition just a little bit.
Mhm.
And it's gonna come back to something that we've been talking about a lot tonight, but let's talk about the NBA. And the idea of this segment is considering doomsday. So if the season stopped today, what is the NBA gonna look like? What are the accolades gonna look like that players will finish like or even we could consider stopping on Christmas Day too, because then we could have some predictions for the games that we're going to see on Saturday. All really great games. Your Knicks are going to be playing the Hawks first off, and then Bucks, Celtics, Suns, Warriors, Lakers, Nets, and then Jazz, Mavs. So obviously 5 great games. I would love to watch them all if I could. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but I'm going to try. All right, first off, I got to ask, are your Knicks going to beat the Hawks?
If everybody can stay healthy, I know we just talked about Derrick Rose going on the IR for a foot surgery, about 8 weeks. He's going to be off. Potential 6th Man of the Year award nominee. But, they have a lot of other pieces. They have Randall. They have somebody that I was so impressed by last night was Mitchell Robinson. He sees the ball up in the air about 12 feet in the air and just slams it. Like, it's so quick and poetic and beautiful. Like, I can go on for days about that. But they didn't shoot the 3-ball too well yesterday. I mean, Fournier obviously did. Fournier is just coming along with the Knicks team so well, and I'm not sure what to think about Kemba right now. I saw from last night that he had a ton of turnovers, and I was really unimpressed with that. But at the same time,
about that though, with the
I
turnover.
really, it's hard. That's a good question. Was I surprised? It surprises me, but the way that he's been playing recently doesn't really shock me too much. He just doesn't take care of the ball. He just doesn't keep it close to him, and that's just what happens when you're being a little. He's scared with that whole Knicks rotation. Thibodeau not wanting him in. It's kind of getting into his head, and he might be feeling like he has to do a little bit more than he should. But on the same note, he just can't. Like, he's not capable of it. So if he can limit his turnovers, take care of the ball, and if the Knicks can shoot better, if they can give the ball to Fournier more, and Alec Burks can keep doing his thing, like, he's rolling now. So I really think that they're going to beat the Hawks. It just depends if Trae Young and his horrible haircut show up on Christmas Day. Maybe Santa will bring him a new hairline. That'd be really nice.
Oh my God, this is how angry Knicks fans are gonna be. Angry and passionate on Christmas Day. There's a lot of passion going into this game. Man, I think that the Knicks are so exciting to watch. And I think part of that is definitely Knicks fans just constantly believing in the team. And you mentioned Mitchell Robinson. He didn't even play that much last night and still finished with 17. Yeah, I think that the energy that he brings to is huge. I honestly I can't predict how the game on Saturday will go. I just think that there's just so much talent. I think possibly if the Hawks do win, I think that they would win by a lot. I don't think it would be that close of a game. I still think that the Knicks have a chance, and I'm going to keep saying it too. The Knicks only got better in the offseason, and they made the playoffs last year. Yeah, I know they're 12th right now in the East, and Hawks are just right above them, but there's still a lot of possibilities. There's so many good teams out in front of them, and a lot of surprising teams too, where you just could not have predicted this. But yeah, D Rose is going to be out for 8 weeks, and if Fournier keeps stepping up in the way that he's been doing and putting up 20 plus points a game, maybe even notching a 30-point game too, along with Burks, putting up like just solid numbers across the board, the Knicks could be great for the rest of the season and turning on late. And something that came up in Pick and Pod, which I want to know what you think about, is the difference maker for the Knicks for the rest of the season going to be how they play at home?
It's an interesting question. Both home games I went to this year, they played the Rockets and the Pistons, so I kind of have a weird skewed view of their play at home.
Right.
Even though they narrowly beat the Rockets, which is pretty funny, but they did stomp on the Pistons last night. But it's the energy when you go in there. I'm sure the players on the Pistons after went up to the Knicks and were like so this is like every game? Is it always like this? Like, we're the Pistons. Like, why is everybody here and screaming and yelling every second of the game? That's just an element of the Garden. I mean, it's America's most famous arena. So these players are really lucky to be playing in there for all their home games. But do you have a stat on how well they do at home? Because I'm not really too sure.
They do better at on the road than on home. I actually don't have that pulled up, but yeah, after last night, I think this could be a start of a different story. And I have to say, when I was at the Nets game, like the Subway Series, the Knicks came in, you couldn't tell it was Brooklyn's court. You literally could not tell.
Ah,
They
yeah,
were that
I
loud.
love that.
And so, I mean, I know it wasn't like they were actually playing at home, but you consider to be the New York basketball team, and that definitely showed. They like all Knicks fans and even the players a little bit. They kept missing shots, but like they did do things well that I thought was impressive. They made it seem like Barclays Center was their home too. So just another extension of MSG. I thought that was funny. Um, yeah. Okay. So all right, Knicks Hawks. I guess we'll have the Knicks winning. Is there anything that you want to add to, because that's kind of a big claim? D Rose 6th man of the year. We're going to talk about those accolades later on, but do you really think he would be worthy of that? And does that all go out the window now that he's out for 8 weeks because of an ankle injury?
Well, I think technically he's ineligible for the nomination. He's probably going to miss, I don't know, like 15, 20 games or so, I think, if my math is correct. I'm not a math major, but yeah, I think he's counted out for the moment. But he's just so great coming off the bench. And people ask me, they're like, you don't want Rose starting? It's like, no, I don't want Rose starting. I want them to go out there, see what they can do, and then Tibbs make his mind up whether he wants to throw him in or not. And usually he just provides a spark that is much needed for the Knicks to go and do something. He'll hit some threes. He'll hit some wacky threes. He'll hit some floaters on the run. He'll get some good passes. And number one, when you consider Kemba to compare to D Rose just knows how to take care of the ball. He's not losing the ball. He's not making stupid passes where he's trying to, get another dollar on his contract or get another minute on the court. He's really about team basketball. And I think that's another reason why he doesn't start, is because he goes in there, he knows his role, he does his job, and he's just very unselfish and isn't trying to make the flashy play, but he scores. Like last year toward the end of the season, he was averaging about 18 to 20 points, and people didn't even notice. People didn't even know he was on the Knicks, to be honest. A lot of people that were like, whoa, who's this Rose guy? It's like, oh yeah, that's the 2011 MVP of the NBA. But he's still got it. He's still got that mindset. I think that's the number one thing. His IQ on the court, his ability to take care of the ball. It all just centers around the fact that he was once that good, but he isn't physically inept anymore at that level. So,
yeah.
It's hard to say whether he could be 6th man of the year if he was still playing, but I'm excited to hear your prediction for who you think should be.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you that I do have to pay respect to D Rose though, because
Do your thing.
He is. I mean, yeah. Now it's a different ankle injury, but
yeah,
the way he would drive to the basket. You said there's no flashy play, but it was a flashy play, and at the same time, it was a smart play too, because like he would drive, and at first maybe he wouldn't draw players that much because you're like, wow, he's driving to the hoop really hard right now and have to put up a crazy finish. But then he does that a couple times, puts up that finish, and now players are going to start to crash and defend. And then he could kick it out because of that IQ that he has. Yeah, I think he deserves so much respect too. And I thought it was like heartbreaking to know that he's just like, yeah, no, I'm not the player I was and I never will be. Yeah, it's realistic, but it's just kind of sad. And yeah, I do agree that keeping him coming off the bench is great, not only for morale but momentum too. And seeing the way he performs against really good teams shows his experience, and I think that makes him the rock for the Knicks. Like he definitely didn't have a triple double against the Warriors, but he had a great stat line. I forget what it was. It was like 15 points, maybe 4 assists and 5 rebounds, something like that against the Warriors. And then against the Knicks too. The Nets. He had a good amount of points and rebounds too. And yeah, I just think he deserves so much respect. I think he's so exciting to watch. Before we get to the accolades, let's just make it a prediction too. Bucks, Celtics, who do you have?
I'll take the Celtics.
Wow.
They are number 9. They are sort of my team's rival, but I do have a lot of respect for Jalen and Jason. They're just unbelievable. I think they're really going to put on a show, and the Bucks are going to get what's coming to them, because that championship last year, it was well deserved, but it was out of nowhere.
Wow. So it kind of doesn't seem like you actually think it was well deserved in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bucks up right now in the Rockets, 79-65. They'll take on the Mavs before hosting the Celtics on Christmas Day. Yeah, I mean, I would say you would have to take the Celtics if you asked me earlier on, just for the sheer fact that the Bucks lost to the Cavs this season. But I think that the Cavs have obviously written themselves a way different story than we expected. Yeah. I don't think it says that much, that loss. Even it was a huge loss. The Cavs beat them 119-90. I would go Bucks though. I think that I would just have to. It just makes sense. They're the 5 seed right now. Celtics the 9 seed, like you mentioned, coming off a championship. I'm gonna go Bucks. Okay, how about Suns Warriors? Who you got?
I like the Warriors. I think the Suns are very talented, and they have a lot of different pieces. I think Chris Paul is one of the most underrated players to ever touch the ball. And I say that as someone who's not really a big fan of him. But I think Golden State is just way too good. I think that Steph Curry just has the juice. There's a lot of other young players around him that just feed off of him, and they just love playing around him. He just seems like such a fun guy to be around. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a close one. I think Phoenix just took a game ahead of them in the Western Conference standings. But Golden State is just something fun to watch, and something somewhat of a great villain to root for, even though in the past 2 seasons or so they weren't really the villain as much as they were in that 5 championship run. But it's really just fun to see Steph Curry do his thing out there, and Golden State. That's what I'm taking.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. And it's crazy how much the narrative changed, because I would not be rooting for them at all.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 years ago. Not at all, because there's no fun in rooting for that like juggernaut type team unless that is your team and you're a Golden State fan. But I'm definitely going to go Warriors. I agree. I think they have one more loss in Phoenix right now, but that does not say anything. The fact they're constantly such a young seeming and just fun having team, and I think that Steve Kerr's leadership is literally something to be studied, because it's so cool. And I think the way he admires Steph Curry is like, he is a fan of him too, even though he's a coach. And I think that that respect is just awesome. And it's really, really nice to see them doing well again. And I definitely have them in the finals. I think that this game, it could say a little bit it's
definitely a good preview to how the Western Conference will shape out.
Yes, that's the thing. I think that's the way to look at it. And it's just going to be about longevity, I guess, through the rest of the season. And keep it going a little bit, talk about longevity. Lakers, Nets, like you said, we don't know for the Nets if KD actually will be playing. James Harden is 2 weeks out of his protocol when they play on Saturday, and KD will be 9 days since he entered his protocol. But the Nets wouldn't have practiced or played a game in a week before this game when they played the Lakers, according to WFUV alum Billy Reinhart on Twitter. But who would you take in this predicted NBA Finals matchup going into the season. A lot of people thought that these would be the two teams. So who you got, Lakers or Nets?
Are we counting Kyrie in there, or what's the deal with that? It's very
Yeah, okay. I think we
huge
count
factor.
Kyrie. Yeah.
If we're putting Kyrie in there, I'm still gonna. I mean, I wouldn't see the Lakers making the championship this year, to be honest. But if it were to be them two, I'd take Brooklyn. I like Brooklyn. I'm not a big fan of LeBron. I respect his greatness, however, and I just think that Kevin Durant is just a killer. James Harden. I mean, like, how do you have those three on the same court together on the same team? It's unbelievable. So it's going to be hard for anybody to take down Brooklyn if they're fully healthy and if Kyrie is definitely going to be in it. So, I think a greater question at the moment would be Golden State, Brooklyn fully healthy. I think that would
Oh,
be an unbelievable finals matchup with Clay back and James Wiseman back.
yeah.
So, sorry, that didn't answer your question, but
Oh, and we're gonna get there. We'll work through Jazz and Mavs matchup too, but we got to talk about what we see the finals looking like. I completely agree. It'd be the Nets Warriors, but
yeah,
I know you mentioned you're not a LeBron fan. I'm a huge LeBron fan, but he's been really, really hard to watch this season, and I think that, like you said, I think we could rule them out of a championship run. And hopefully me saying that and putting that into the universe makes around and it makes LeBron's life a little bit easier down the stretch for these rest of these games. But yeah, Lakers Nets should be way more of an exciting game to look forward to a couple days out than it is right now, because I think that the way the Nets have been playing and the fact that they've been first in the East for for weeks now is huge.
yeah.
Like, KD's a killer. That's easy money sniper right there. And what
Mm,
really gave me a lot of respect for KD and for the whole Nets team too is when they played that game against Toronto the other week, where James Harden was out. You had a lot of players out, but KD stepped up and made the young players around him better that were starting for their first game for the Nets, or, playing the most minutes that they had all season. He made them better, and he was the difference maker, obviously, in actually scoring, but he moved the ball around well and gave people the looks that made them take the shot that they were comfortable with. And I think that ability is awesome. There's so much that could change throughout the rest of the season. And with Kyrie and James Harden right alongside him too, it's going to make his life a lot easier. But he proved that he could do it without them, at least win games without them. Maybe it's not winning a championship, but yeah, I think that the Nets are just awesome. And just to round it out, Jazz versus Mavs, who are you going to take? I know we got some news out there with COVID. So does that change your mind at all?
yeah. I mean, Luka Doncic is the best basketball player to ever step on the court ever. So with him out, it's gonna significantly change how the game is gonna go. At the moment, I mean, the Jazz are just gonna take it. I mean, if there's no Luka Doncic, there's no W.
Yeah, wow. I think we agreed on everything except for the Bucks Celtics. Yeah, I have the Jazz taking this. I think
Yeah,
also after their success last season, where they really put their name on the map, I just think they have momentum right now. And Luca being out, man, we could definitely predict how this is going to go. But that being said, we got 5 minutes left, and we have three different accolades to work through. I need to know who your MVP of the season is. If everything stopped today, who's your MVP?
um, it's definitely Luka Doncic. He's just so good. He works with such little that's at his disposal, and he just delivers. He just brings it. He's averaging 26, 9, shooting 32 from three, 44 from the field, and he's out there. He is a little whiny. But I'm not sure if he can necessarily lead his team to a championship at the moment with what he has, but I do think that he and Steph Curry. I'm not going to say Steph Curry. That's such a lame answer. But Luka Doncic is the most valuable player in any franchise right now, excluding Steph Curry. He's so valuable. So valuable.
Okay, this is where the linguistics problem comes in for these questions, because most valuable player, I think, throughout, this is what made me a LeBron fan. Throughout a lot of his career, he was easily the most valuable player on his team.
Hmm.
Easily. Because he was the difference maker, and you had to look at what he was working with around him too. Yeah, Luka, he's consistently averaging so many points, like through from 2018 too. He's averaging 25 plus points. And yeah, I think he's such an impressive player, but I have to go KD right now. He's leading the league in points per game right now. I think he has 29. Like I said, he's the difference maker. He is what gives the Nets depth because of the way he works with other players. And I think that could go beyond playing with them too. God forbid he gets injured or whatever. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think KD is my MVP. Yours is Luka. We'll see how that goes.
there's a lot of season left to play.
Lot of season left, and I know Mavs right now 8th. The Nets are first. I think that
Hmm.
says something. You got to take into account.
Hey, have you checked the Brooklyn Nets roster recently?
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, that was a good point. It's a good point. How about pivot a little bit? Rookie of the year. Who do you have?
I I got Scotty Barnes. I think he's a
That's who
dog.
I
He's
have. No
averaging.
way.
No. Oh,
Promise.
I
Promise.
kind of like the fact that we didn't tell each other, and
Okay.
we
Yeah.
still got it. Yeah, I mean he's averaging 16 points a game. I mean his team isn't too good, but he's getting 8 rebounds, 4 assists, a block. Like how more versatile can you be? How more well rounded can you be? And Florida State really had something in them when they when they sent him off to the NBA, and they knew that he was a lot better than the 4th pick. So 6'7", 225, and what's he? He's 20 years old. He's my age, so he has so much potential. But right now, this season, honestly, he's averaging 16, 8, and 4. So
Yeah. Completely agree in there. Okay. 6th man of the year. I would have Iggy, like Andre Iguodala, if he played more games. I'm consistently impressed by him, but I
mhm.
just don't think he's been playing enough games to really put him in the running for that. So I'm gonna go with my guy Caruso on the Bulls. How about you?
Okay, I got Jordan Poole.
Okay, all right. I think
Yeah.
that's also a solid answer for sure. And that's a lot. He is definitely big shoes to fill coming off the bench. But now let's just go. You and I think, have the same finals prediction. East, I have the Nets, and in the West, I have the Warriors. And winning it all, I am not gonna predict right now because I can't.
So I have in the Eastern Conference the Heat. And then in the Western Conference, I got the Golden State Warriors because they are 25-6 and getting back the second best shooter of all time, arguably, and they have the best shooter of all time.
Well, I don't think you have to defend the Warriors. I think you would
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
defend
okay.
the Heat
I
claim.
would have to defend the Heat. That is true. That is true. But I mean, you got Jimmy Butler, who knows how to get his team to a championship. We saw that in the bubble. We got Bam, who's just unbelievable. PJ Tucker has been a great addition to them. Duncan Robinson is just a killer who can shoot the lights out of the ball as well as Tyler Hero. So, they're not too deep, but they have a lot of dogs who know how to, play their role. And I just left out Kyle Lowry, he's been solid. He's been a solid point guard. So that's me defending the Miami Heat.
Okay, what a way to end this great one-on-one nightly show. Will, it's been so nice to be here with you. This show has been produced by the one and only Alex Wolves, and I'm Gigi Spear. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy holidays, and we wish you all the best.